All right, so today we're jumping into a really powerful sermon by speaker Michael Arukbo. And he has this pretty intense idea that being a mother isn't just about biology. Nope, he says it's a spiritual office with these specific duties he calls ministries, and that they're the key to, well, the health of an entire generation. It's a big claim, so let's dive right in. And this right here, this is the core idea for everything we're going to talk about. The whole argument is that a mother's role is an official, spiritual job, and that the future literally rests on their shoulders. I mean, that's a heavy concept, right? So let's really unpack what he means by that. So you might be asking, why the urgency? Why frame motherhood as this high-stakes office? Well, the speaker's premise is pretty stark. He uses some really strong language arguing that society has become, and this is his word, bastardized. And the reason? Because two fundamental institutions, the family and the church, are under attack. Okay, so let's dig into that reasoning a little bit. The family is seen as the #1 target because, think about it, that's where a society's moral compass is supposed to be set, right? It's where conscience and values are formed, and right in the middle of that critical institution, that's where he says mothers play this vital defensive role. They're the date keepers. And that really brings us to the main point here. The whole idea is that motherhood is a spiritual mandate. It's way more than just biology. It's a calling, and it comes with very specific jobs that the speaker calls ministries. Now, just to be super clear, when he says ministry, he's not talking about, a formal position in a church. Not at all. He defines it as a unique spiritual function that every single mother is called to operate in. You can almost think of them like spiritual skill sets, and they're seen as absolutely essential for building a strong family and then, by extension, a healthy society. All right, so let's get into the first couple of these ministries. These two are all about what you might call spiritual intelligence. That ability to see what's really going on and to lead with some serious wisdom. Okay, first up is the prophetic ministry. The idea here is that a mother needs what he calls prophetic intelligence to really get a handle on her child's unique destiny. The teaching is that through prayer, she can, and this is a quote, peep into the scrolls of the Spirit to see her child's purpose. And then she can guide them based on that. The example given is the biblical figure Anna, who saw Jesus' destiny when he was just a baby. Now, this second ministry is leadership. And to explain this one, he uses this really dramatic story from the Old Testament. Picture this. A powerful general named Joab is about to completely wipe a city called Abel off the map. Why? Because some rebel is hiding inside. So the army is at the gates. It looks like it's all over. But then, a wise woman from inside the city comes out and confronts him. And this is the key. She doesn't use force. How could she? She uses wisdom. She negotiates. She appeals to a higher purpose. And she promises to handle the problem herself. And what happens? She saves her entire community, not with power, but with wisdom. And that is held up as the model for a mother's leadership. Okay, let's move on to the next set of ministries. Now, these are all about shaping the home itself, its spiritual atmosphere, and its protective shield, if you will. So this brings us to the Ministry of Intercession, which is basically intense prayer, and the speaker frames this as a kind of spiritual warfare. He makes this really sharp, almost shocking contrast. On one hand, you have the cry of Rachel, this biblical image of a mother just weeping in spiritual agony for her kids. And on the other hand, he puts things like Instagram fingernails and mascara. The message is pretty blunt. It's a call for mothers to be warriors in the spirit instead of being distracted. Then there are two more that really shape the home's atmosphere. First, there's worship. This is where a mother leads her family in being grateful, kind of like Miriam leading the celebration song after crossing the Red Sea. And second, there's hospitality. And this isn't just about having people over for dinner. It's about cultivating a large-heartedness, teaching kids to share and to think about other people, so they grow up compassionate, not selfish. All right, we're on to the final set of ministries, and these are maybe the most direct, the most hands-on. They're all about discipleship, about raising children to carry on a legacy. So you have the teaching ministry. This is presented as this vital chain of mentorship. The speaker pulls from the book of Titus to argue that older, more experienced women have a responsibility to teach the younger women, the practical and spiritual stuff about being wives and mothers. The idea is that if they don't, it creates a vacuum, and something else, what he calls demonic intelligences, will rush in to fill it. And last but not least, there's the soul-winning ministry. This is all about a mother's deep, lasting spiritual influence on her kids. The model for this is Mary Magdalene, who was the very first to go and tell people about the resurrection. But then the speaker makes it really personal. He talks about his own mom and how her relentless spiritual guidance is what finally got through to him, even after he resisted for years. So, what's the big picture here? Why do all 7 of these ministries matter so much? Well, the source material frames this as way more than just a guide for one family. It's presented as a strategic plan for restoring all of society. And this quote right here really drives home just how high the stakes are. See, he's not talking in abstract terms. He's pointing to very specific, real-world problems, like addiction, or young people with potential throwing it all away to become, in his words, Yahoo people, which is a Nigerian term for online scammers. And he positions the active ministry of mothers as the direct answer to these problems. And that is the ultimate goal. Every single one of these ministries we've talked about, from seeing the future to teaching wisdom to praying fiercely, they're all presented as the necessary tools for this one monumental task, restoring the very soul of a generation. So in the end, this whole teaching really boils down to one single challenging question. It's a call to action that takes motherhood from being just a private family role and turns it into a public, world-changing responsibility. And the question is this: where are the women that will ransom a generation?